How to stay motivated. Let me start by giving an example or a little bit of a story from my life. When I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, I hated running with a burning passion. I was always the slowest kid in the class. I felt so much pain every time that we hit the track. My lungs would burn. I just had that goopy, icky, sticky stuff in the back of my throat. It was nearly impossible to get myself motivated to run. I would not do it out of choice. And every time that we had some gym class activity where we had to do a running test or anything like that, I just hated it and I did so poorly. To give you an even further example of how much I hated running, when I was in my high school freshman gym class, we had these tests that we had to do where we had to run around the lap. It was about, around the track, sorry, it was about 2.5 miles that we had to run in 25 minutes. And for most people, that's not super difficult to do, like especially for a teenager who's in decent shape. For me, it was absolutely horrible. And the way it worked is that was 10 laps around the track. So each lap that you did, you got a grade basically. So if you got all 10 laps, you got an A. If you got 9 laps, you got a B, and so on and so forth. So I would push myself to get this A. By the end of these tests that we had to do, I was in so much pain. And there was one particular experience where we had done this test. I'd gotten all 10 laps successfully, but I had IBS at the time, still do to some degree. And some types of exercise, especially extreme exercise, would make it flare up, which would mean that my stomach, my abdomen would just really, really, really hurt. So after this one test, I had pushed myself so hard that in the locker room afterwards, when we were supposed to be getting dressed, I was literally doubled over in pain. Couldn't get dressed, couldn't get myself to move, couldn't get myself to my next class. So I literally sat in that locker room for 10, 20, maybe 30 minutes after the bell had rung for me to go to my next class because I was in so much pain. So all of that is just to say that I hated running. I really, really, really hated it. Now, when I went to college, I had a friend who decided she wanted to run a half marathon. Now, for somebody who hates running a half marathon is an enormous feat. But for whatever crazy reason, I decided that I was going to try running a half marathon as well. So I did. I signed up with her and a couple other friends. One of those friends started to train with me. And honestly, the craziest thing happened. I actually fell in love with running, which was really weird for me because, again, I always hated it. But the reason why I was suddenly so driven to be running consistently and actually did relatively well once we did the race was because, one, I was choosing to do the running instead of telling myself I was being forced to or somebody was asking me to do it. I got to choose. But second of all, the way that I thought about running and the way that I approached it flipped a 180. It completely changed. When I was growing up, I always thought about running as just being so painful, and I associated it with that discomfort and this uncomfortable burning in my legs and that burning in my lungs, and I always considered that to be a bad thing. Now, when I was running in college, I didn't necessarily completely lose those sensations. I still had that burning in my legs. I still had that burning sensation in my lungs, but because I was shifting my mindset, the way that I viewed it, I actually started to appreciate those feelings. So instead of seeing those feelings as extremely painful, I started to see them as actually pleasurable in a weird sort of way because I associated that pain in my legs with strength. And I associated that pain in my lungs with increasing my lung capacity and increasing my endurance. We spent a lot of our time running outside. That was also really fun. That helped me to really fall in love with running as well, because running laps around a track is not particularly fun or appealing, but running down a trail that goes down to a lake and up to some mountains is actually really fun and very, very picturesque. It was really nice to get out in nature. I loved that feeling of the wind just blowing by us as we were running. I loved that feeling of getting stronger and being able to propel myself for long periods of time, up to 2 hours. I could just run. That was something I could never do before. And this experience helped me to realize that motivation is super flexible. Okay, we are all motivated by something. When I was growing up, I was very motivated not to run, but I was able to change that. I was able to change my motivation and feel motivated to run because of the way that I thought about things, the way that I switched my beliefs. This is something that you'll hear me talk about a lot because it's so incredibly powerful. So if you are feeling like you have low motivation, well, first of all, give me an example. What's something that you feel like you have low motivation in? Is it exercise? Do you feel like you don't have motivation to work towards one of your goals, like reading every single day? Or do you feel like you're not motivated to get up and go to work in the morning? Like, what is it? Just give me some ideas. What are some things that you don't feel motivated with? If you want to, you can leave them down in the comments. We can start a conversation. So pick one of these things. Let's just say that you're not feeling very motivated to get up and exercise. And let's just examine why. How do you feel when you think about exercising? What thoughts run through your head? Are you thinking, oh, I'm so excited to exercise. I love exercise. It makes me feel so good. Probably not. If you're struggling to feel motivated to go exercise, probably some of the thoughts that you're experiencing are, I don't like exercise. I feel exhausted. I don't really feel like doing it today. I don't have the energy to do it today. I'm going to be so tired after I exercise. It's going to be so painful exercising. While you're exercising, what are you telling yourself? What are you thinking? Are you enjoying the experience? Or are you telling yourself, this is so painful? Are you checking your watch all the time? Are you hoping that it's going to be over soon? Are you counting down the seconds until your 20-minute elliptical time is over? If that's the way that you're approaching exercise, then of course you're not motivated to go exercise because your mind is programmed to believe that exercise is an absolutely miserable experience, that it's this pain that you're literally inflicting on yourself. So if you can shift that and you can fall in love with exercise and you can train your mind to believe that exercise is a super pleasurable experience, you will have a hard time not exercising. It's incredibly powerful. Our minds are literally so powerful. When you were growing up, you may have known some people that were like this, where they just went to the gym all the time. Maybe they were athletes. Maybe they still go to the gym all the time. You might know a mom down the street who she exercises all the time and she has 10 kids and you have absolutely no idea how she's doing it because you have 2 kids and you still can't figure out how to get to the gym, right? It's all mental. It's all up here. It has nothing to do with how busy we are. It has nothing to do with how much energy we have or what resources we have access to. It's 100% mental. So the question is then, how do you actually up that motivation? How do you switch from this negative association with your habit you're wanting to develop to this positive association that's just going to naturally drive you to keep working on that habit? So there's a very simple exercise you can do. What you can do is think about the habit that you're wanting to develop. Think about times you've tried to work on it. So if it is exercise, think about all the negative thoughts and feelings that you have associated with it, including the positive ones too, right? But mostly those negative ones. What do you think before exercise? What do you think during exercise? What are you doing? What are you feeling? Then I want you to take a look at that list and we're going to create a separate sheet of paper and we're going to write the opposite. So instead of telling yourself, I feel so much pain when I exercise, it's so uncomfortable, write something that is positive and also true. That's going to help your mind really focus on those positive things about that habit. So the opposite of feeling pain during exercise could be, I love the feeling of strength and energy that I get when I'm exercising. I love the feeling I get after I exercise. I love getting stronger. I love improving my endurance. I love taking things little by little. I am able to focus on my body's needs. So when I need to slow down, I can do that. And I just enjoy the process. See, those are all very positive things. So even in the exercise, you might be still feeling that same level of pain or discomfort, But because you're thinking about it a different way and you're telling yourself different things mentally, it makes a huge difference. Your mind starts to associate exercise with positive things. And slowly over time, in fact, this can happen much more quickly than you think. If you're constantly feeding yourself these positive messages, constantly telling yourself positive things instead of those negative things, it really quickly starts to shift your mindset. Another really powerful way you can do this is take those positive statements that you created and record them. So get your phone. You could use a fancy microphone like this if you want to, but really your phone works just fine. And just record yourself saying all these affirmations or these positive statements. Then right before you go to bed and right when you wake up in the morning, just listen to that audio. And what that does is right before you go to bed and right when you wake up in the morning, that's when your subconscious mind is most open to suggestion. So it makes it more likely that these ideas and these new positive beliefs and ways of thinking are going to stick, not just now, but in the long run. There's going to be a day where you wake up and look back and realize how far you've come. That you are actually excited to exercise. You're actually excited to work on this habit that you've really been struggling with. That is where this motivation comes from. I am not a big believer in doing tons and tons of vision boards just for the sake of trying to motivate yourself. I am a believer, however, in using vision boards as a way to help retrain your subconscious mind. I don't believe it's very helpful for you to use rewards to motivate yourself. If you're telling yourself, oh, I can have ice cream at the end of the week, or I can pick a treat or watch my favorite movie if I can exercise every single day this week, then your mind is still being trained to believe that you have to do this hard thing, that you have to go through this really difficult, painful exercise in order to get something pleasurable. But if you can train your mind to believe that exercise is pleasurable, that doing that habit is pleasurable, you don't have to use any sort of external rewards, and you will continue to do that habit, continue to do that thing forever.